Welcome to Qwest Coast, a live play Pathfinder podcast. The Qwest Coast is intended for mature audiences. Content warnings can be found in the episode description.
A rose by any other name.
Hey there, all you dice rollers and gamblers out there. Welcome to the seedier side of the Qwest Coast. Wash up on shore as we engage in talkbacks about our last few episodes.
Qwest Coast, kick back.
Kick Qwest.
Kick Qwest back.
Qwest. Quick.
All you Questers and Coasters, welcome back.
Oh, should we call them coasters?
No, because they'll just coast by our stuff.
Is that what we're doing? Anyway.
Welcome back to the Qwest Coast.
After dark. After hours. Unplugged.
Qwest Coast
At night.
Qwest Coast Unplugged.
Welcome back to Qwest Coast Shoreside.
Welcome to the QHQ.
QHQ.
Try to remember the basics of
QCHQ.
Close quarters questions. CQQ.
QCQC, Close Quarter Qwest Coast. So we're on a train?
yes.
Really, Jimmy.
Roll for initiative.
If you're listening to this, hopefully you've listened to the first episode of the Holy Harbor Heist.
Duly titled.
Let's do it in the bank.
If not, I recommend going back and listening to it because that's pretty much what we're going to be talking about here.
In fact, it may even enhance this experience.
In case we didn't say it before, I'm Blue Jay.
I'm Break Chimneys.
And I am Bill Borneo.
Blue Jay, what is this segment, man? What are we doing here?
Well, we did this show, The Qwest Coast. It's our first time ever making a show.
Yeah, 100%.
We were introduced to these two characters, Raspberry and the Boomer.
I'm the boomer.
I'm not.
We moved pretty quickly and we kind of jumped straight into the action. And the action being tracking down Raspberry's lost lovers and
Clients,
talking drunk
please.
people into digging holes.
They don't need a lot of convincing, it turns out.
I just want to point out that you couldn't have asked a human to dig those tunnels.
Isn't Ted a human?
I thought he was a dwarf for some reason.
Is he a dwarf?
He's human.
Yeah, he's a human.
Why did he mention something about his dad and I just assumed, I'm the
Damn.
racist. Fuck. All right, well, I'm canceled. See you later, everyone.
My dad was a coal miner. Oh, must be a family of dwarves.
And that was the end of the Qwest Coast. Thanks for joining us. Let's set the stage, shall we?
This is the Qwest Coast. We are a bunch of role players doing our best attempt to make you laugh and have a good time for the short time we have you. Hopefully you've enjoyed this first episode that's out.
And this thing we're doing currently is
Untitled talkback of the episode.
your Qwest Coast behind the coast, behind the scenes, behind the wave.
Behind enemy lines.
Behind the quest. You're behind the quest look at what it is we've done so far, the thinking going into it, maybe a little tease about what's to come, but mostly this is digesting, reflecting, thinking about this thing we have done and we have put together and we have put out.
The Quest Current.
Quest Current.
Qwest Current.
The Current Coast with our host, Blue Jay.
Yeah.
Host, moderator, good-looking guy.
As I was saying, though, we are a bunch of role players. We've been playing Dungeons & Dragons Pathfinder for years.
I think it's almost 20 years at this point.
Yeah.
For some of you.
Right. Well, you're not far behind us.
I started 2015, so
That's still 10 years, man.
yeah.
You've been playing for a decade.
That's half of 20.
But that's still a decade, man. That's not nothing.
It's 10 of 20, I'm just saying.
The next sibling confirmed.
I think one of the biggest questions people are going to have about this podcast is something pretty unique. Most D&D tables that you see have more than 2 players.
That you see being the operative word here.
Right. You don't see us.
We're really crossing our fingers that you at least hear us.
Rest assured, we do have a bigger Pathfinder group. Many of them opted out of this podcast experiment that we're doing.
Or rather, we might say, have yet to realize the opportunity
Right.
on offer here.
This is a pitch deck for them.
We're pioneers.
The only reason we're doing this is to get our friends to play games with us, which is the only reason you should do anything.
I'm gonna be like, hey, you see how I have 5 more Instagram followers now? You gotta get in the podcast.
I'm using clout to get my friends to hang out with me. Welcome to the Qwest Coast.
I've had a lot of fun so far. I know we're only one episode in, and you two agreeing to do this whole thing has just been a really great. We've done some really great storytelling with just 2-player games.
I don't want to say I'm surprised because like I've been playing with you guys for so long. Like I know that both of you are incredible writers and performers. Like it is not shocking to see how well we all take to the format, but it is tremendously enjoyable and like truly like reaffirming. We have continued to construct and cultivate and engage in this play space together. Classically, as Ben said, like the magic number for a party size is 4, and I think is some wisdom behind that.
4 players and a DM.
4 players and a DM, yes. But 2 players and a DM, go find out what kind of intimate and interesting stories you can tell with your friends when there's only 3 of you.
Before we, started recording and doing the whole podcast thing,
Yeah.
we did a couple sessions, I think a Starfinder session and I think a Pathfinder, at least one session, and an Avatar Legend session.
Yeah.
With this dynamic of 2-player parties.
Yeah, so we've known this for about 2 years now.
Yeah, and what we discovered is the difficulty ramps way up.
Yep.
There's no way to have a well-rounded party. Something is always going to be lacking, which is, in my experience, almost a better storytelling device because you have to adapt.
It's a good hurdle to have to clear as a writer.
Right. You don't have your designated roles filled out. You don't have your tank, your wizard, your thief looking for traps, your ranged fighter, what have you.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, here's a problem. This is what I have. This is what you have. What the hell can we do with that?
Yeah, fix a carburetor with a winch and a hammer.
You can't.
You can't.
I think the better example is that scene from Apollo 13 when they need to make a circle fit into a square hole.
That's right, the square hole.
In and out of the square hole?
So we've been playing for years. This setting that we have introduced everyone now to is called Nito. What is unique about this setting?
I don't know that I would particularly call it unique. I think I would call it personal. This is our take on loosely far-flung Galarian play space without like actually being like in any of like the published campaign spaces.
What is Galarian?
The main setting for Teases Pathfinder.
And Bill, you are one of the newer additions. I mean, you've been with us for years and you've been a friend for even more years. But you're one of the newer additions to our table.
With a decade of experience.
With
Our
a
newest player has a decade of
Right.
experience.
How is it coming into Nito and now DMing in Nito? Do you struggle with anything like not fully knowing the history of like the multiple campaigns or anything we've run before?
Something we don't have either.
But is there frustrations with playing in Nito or anything like that?
So as what's been described as a weeba and this, why are you laughing?
You were saying?
So being newer to this specific setting and just in general rolling it does present a number of challenges. I would say that because this is the first environment and the first setting that I've done a tabletop RPG, there's familiarity that's established in that. There was a blank canvas where I did not really know how the world is built or navigated and what the rules and the conventions are. There is a number of challenges with Nito because there is a lot of lore that gets referenced that I only know tangentially.
Yeah.
At some point, we will probably talk about a lot of the lore behind Nito. And by we, I really mean it's going to be Brick, it's going to be Blue Jay, it might be another compatriot of ours, Boogie. And so there's a lot of lore that I understand, but there's also a lot of lore that I don't know the exact details of. I find that, and I think you'll see this too when we're looking at these adventures that we've prepared for you in the first season, that you can enjoy a lot of what we are presenting from the get-go. Being somebody who is coming in when this world has already been built has been a primer and very instructive in learning how to take the larger structure of that and slowly, as we play more and more, getting to understand the finer points of that. The dynamics between various characters that do connect to this larger overarching plot that I question how many seasons it would take before we actually get into that within this podcast. But I think that is also probably the ultimate goal at some point, or at least one of them, is to introduce folks to this richer world. And so I think in some ways there is an advantage I have in that regard, being newer, in that I don't have that burden of trying to connect to the larger point. You could take my adventure and place it into any other adventure, and it's not going to necessarily have to rely on a certain amount of lore. Whereas when you get to Brick's adventure, you'll begin to get a nice taste of the nuance that is behind that lore. And in Blue Jays too, there's actually a lot of...
I lore dump hard.
You do lore dump hard. And if you know more of the lore, you can appreciate it a lot more. But if you don't, it can kind of just go past you without noticing. I think that answers the question. I've been yapping for a minute, though.
As you listen to these episodes and you listen to Bill play and DM, contrast what he said here with how seamlessly he intertwines himself into whatever role he's playing. Like, that's what makes Bill such a great fucking player and a good fucking writer. We just listened to Bill say, like, I'm 10 years behind. I only have secondhand tangential experience with the lore. You can listen to him in these recordings and be like, oh no, like, Bill gets it too. You know, Bill is easily a co-author in this. And of course, like, officially, you now are a co-author in this setting. I think that'll be fun for the listeners at home to be like, are we sure he doesn't know what's going on? Because it's to me, it certainly fucking sounds like it.
It's all a power play for contracts. I want a bigger paycheck, honestly. So
Both of you guys kind of touched in on what I wanted to go into next, as I described my relationship with the Nito setting. And that's the big thing, is that it's a multi-DM setting. Beyond just us having, for this podcast, 2 players and 1 DM, which is already sort of an abnormal thing, we run Nito as a multi-DM setting where we don't just have one perma-DM that DMs every adventure. We have one that DMs most of the adventures, if we're being
whoever
honest.
that is.
But since its inception, since Brick and I sat down one day at a diner with our friend Boogie, previously mentioned, we sat down in a diner and we're like, we're tired of playing in such and such world. We're going to make our own.
Yeah.
And we want it to be something where everyone can run a story. Everyone can add in an element. And this world will be developed through multiple writers.
Yeah.
And I think we've accomplished that.
We've been doing that for like 15 years at this point.
You know, to your point earlier, that's why we don't necessarily ourselves know all the lore.
Yeah.
Is because we're not always in the DM seat. We've played through this game so much in this world. There's so much in it that we just can't possibly know everything ourselves.
Yeah.
We're not the sole creators.
Yeah.
And Bill, we've been lucky enough that you have become one of these creators as well.
just recently.
You're an S tier player. You're a player, writer, performer, whatever you want to call it. You are an S tier contributor to this space. Our games would not be the way it is without you. That's simply undeniable.
S for sad.
S for skilled.
S for sub.
S for salubrious.
But what I'm actually curious about is both of you and Boogie imagined and contrived a multi-DM. And I think that we should move away from the DM, GM labels just for the sake of equity.
No, equity is the right word. Yeah.
Yeah, Dungeon Master, Game Master. We've talked about this before and talked about changing the title. It's just like it's so ingrained in me, and I'm sure you too, Brick, that we've been playing this game for so long that it's just like, oh, DM. Pathfinder itself, which, you know, we've also been playing for a number of years, it uses the term GM, but you'll constantly hear me say DM.
Yep.
I just keep falling back to that.
Right.
Yeah, and even in casual conversation when I talk about this game to other people, I still say DM.
I still say D&D.
That's my legacy. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, right. That's the legacy attachment.
Right. Yeah. We play Pathfinder, and I love Pathfinder.
Yeah. But we came up on 3.0 and 3.5.
Yeah. But usually when I'm talking about this game to people, I'll be like, oh yeah, like I play D&D. And if they're like, oh, I also play D&D, then I'll be like, well, actually, I play Pathfinder.
The shibboleth question always is, what edition are you playing?
Yeah.
And oh my God, the last, like, if you're aware of the hobby space, you know what the last couple of years have been like. Everyone's either playing that one system or the other system.
Right.
You know?
Just in the last 2 years or so, I'd say I've been experimenting with different systems, and I've had a lot of fun. And we talked about doing maybe as Patreon content later when we have a Patreon.
Don't look for it. It
Don't look
doesn't
for it.
exist.
We'll let you know.
Our people will call your people.
Yeah, it'd be fun to run a non-Nito adventure in a different system, whether it's Avatar Legends, Call of Cthulhu,
Starfinder 2E, which is apparently on the way.
I actually just got Matt Colville's Draw Steel.
Draw Steel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like that would be fun to try out.
Japan.
Oh, what's the...
Obojima.
Obojima. Yeah. That one looks good as well.
Yeah, Obojima. So anyways, for you listening at home, the big takeaway from this is that this is a multi-DM system. So yes, currently you just heard, let's do it in the bank. I'm going to finish this adventure, and then I'm going to hand over the reins to Bill Borneo, and then he will do his adventure and pass the reins over to Brick Chimneys.
And that'll be season 1.
Yeah, provided I don't derail any adventure.
Ha 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 ha.
Before you dive into it, because I know you have a few good burning questions lined up and loaded, what did inspire both you and Brick and Boogie to want to do a multi-GM/DM session?
That's a good question.
That is a good question.
What do you think?
I had never GM'd yet at that point. I think when we were developing the world, I think I was very heavy into writing.
Oh, was your first game the opening of the campaign setting?
The first adventure I ever DM'd, Game Master DM'd, whatever.
Directed, showrun.
Was the very first adventure in Nito.
Yeah.
It was a one-shot.
Yeah. Oh, my, I remember being around that table for that. That's crazy.
That's juicy.
We had 7 players for that game.
Yeah, we can talk about that, I think, maybe in a different episode, a lore episode or something. The first episode of Nito. Because I'm more interested in Let's Do It in the Bank.
Agreed. So, Blue Jay, what do you want to tell us about Let's Do It in the Bank E1?
I want to get to know you guys' characters a little bit more. One thing I do like about our episode is that we kind of just jump right in. You guys give me a little bit of backstory, and then we're just like, here's a letter. We're doing a bank heist. Start the planning.
Yeah.
And I really like that. But you guys also come up with interesting characters, and I want to give them kind of a moment to shine. And so since she's introduced first in the story, let's start with Raspberry.
Oh, man. I wish I shared your opinion that she was an interesting character. I'd run a character a couple years ago as the first of like this cadre of drow siblings. 1 in every 20 drow females born are the nobles. Like they're supposed to like be groomed to become the next matriarch, and they have more abilities than like the basic species description does in terms of like character creation. In the lore of the 20 sisters, 20 of 20 is supposed to be the inheritor of what I call the Amber World. So I was like, wouldn't it be cool to create a revolving roster of characters based on this like one batch of 20 drow siblings? And so I played, my first one was 19 of 20.
Who is with 12, Raspberry.
Yeah.
12 and 19 are living together in Tetros Harbor.
Yeah. These 2 drow sisters, 12 and 19, they were among a handful of that brood to get out or get away from the grasp of the matriarchs of their clan, who, like I said in the episode, are more interested in conjuring the end of the world than living in it. They got out at about the time Ceres and Rhynesia were allowing non-human species back into the territories and back into the geographic space.
First question, simple one, and I'm going to ask Bill a similar question here in a minute. What is a drow, for those who don't know?
Dark elves, the color of midnight.
Drow are basically elves that lived underground in the Underdark. It's basically an entire continent underground.
There is a culture and a power system that is built around for them. At least in Paizo's conception of drow lore, and to some degree was the Coast conceptions of drow lore, drow female are the strongest of the species. In our setting, we focus on the human territories that like have been pro-human only, pro-human exclusivity rather. Ceres and the kingdom of Rhynesia proper, yeah, it's likely that they're far and few between. Which lends itself to like play a crime-ish character, play a character that is on the other side of either what is orthodox or what is acceptable, and build out from there, kind of a thing.
I have one more question about Raspberry, and then we can move on to the Boomer. You mentioned, and she mentions multiple times in this first episode, her mistrust of humans.
Yeah.
Is there a story behind that? Or is it just something, how she's been treated here in Tetros Harbor, or just on the surface?
I think it's definitely like a broad strokes trope that's like you can easily plug in for character creation. But I think specifically in the context of Rhaenesia's pro-human exclusivity, it's not difficult to imagine that either she was immigrating or she was establishing herself, or even as she deals with the local flora and fauna day by day, especially considering rates of education and literacy in this mostly peasant commonwealth that is only loosely retained by the new UIA. It's likely that it's an incremental build over those 4 or 5 years of her having lived here.
Thank you. We're going to go over to Bill Burnham.
Bill. Grow one.
Rude.
You don't want to grow your own bill?
Like a duck bill?
Whatever kind of bill you imagine.
Why would I do that?
What if you could grow dollar bills?
Well, I'm offended.
By ducks?
By capitalism.
As am I.
Yeah. Yes, Blue Jay.
Bill, we see many faces for the Boomer in this episode. We see your true form in the shape of a Wayang.
Mm-hmm.
Wayangs are pretty new to me, and you do a pretty good job of describing the short angular features and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me just more about Wayangs in general?
So Wayangs are characters that were added to Pathfinder in the Advanced Race Guide. They are characters from the Netherworld, and their story involves during the Age of Ashes, there being an emigration to Golarion within the Paizo world, which is spurred by the emergence of Zon Kuthon, god of darkness and other nefarious things, and brother of Shaylin, god of beauty. So him emerging into the Netherworld drove Wayang's into Golarion and, by extension, into Nito. As far as what they look like, Wayang's are inspired by Indonesian shadow puppets, and as such, there's a lot of hard angles to them, and like shadow puppets, they're often portrayed in a black or a dark color.
And then you give us a lot of backstory just in your character introduction. He went to a magic institution and then went to an elven college and then is now in Tetros Harbor.
Oh yeah, I also wanted to ask about specifically Spellstorm Island, but we'll get there, right?
I mean, we'll start there because that's where Boomer's story starts.
So, to my understanding, and this is something that both of you can supplement more, Spellstorm Island is the place to be when one is studying magics. What made me want to reference that is because it does sound like it is the pinnacle. It's the top. It's the place where if you want to develop your craft, it's where you want to go.
Yeah, I always saw it as like wizards who are so engrossed in magic have almost left humanity behind in a way. Like they're so focused in the arcane and the possibilities of multiverses and that kind of
Which
thing.
we have dual lore answers for, both to the point of like them leaving humanity behind.
We'll get to that. But that's kind of my take on it is like, oh, like these wizards, they see themselves so far above humans, or more accurately, that world affairs are unimportant because they've been introduced to a wider world.
Yeah. They don't rank them out like the priorities of those who study the arcane.
That connects actually because the reason why Spellstorm Island is referenced is I remember when I asked Brick about what schools they cover, very clearly asked, do they cover alchemy? And the answer was no.
Yeah.
And I remember being myself annoyed by that because I would think that you would cover such a rich field like alchemy. And that was always a undercurrent that I kept in mind. And when building characters, there's usually a few different things that go into that. One is I love learning about the mechanics of the game. When looking at alchemists blend potion making with bombs, which is a very interesting balance where you can have a lot of utility, but at the same time, you have a little bit of a limited fighting power, but an effective fighting power. So that's something I've always wanted to explore.
Alchemy is the PLF to the Spellstorm state apparatus.
When I think of alchemy, I think of Pathfinder's equivalent to science. And so I think of chemistry. And when I think of chemistry, I then think about childhood influences. And I think about Genndy Tartakovsky's Dexter's Laboratory,
Yeah.
one of my favorite shows growing up. And I remember Dexter being this character with a strange accent and being short in stature with angular features and a little bit of a mad scientist. I thought, oh, that's a very good thing to blend with an alchemist class and blend it in because Dexter has a lot of insecurities within the show too. Blend that in with being rejected from a prestigious place like Spellstorm Island. And then when you couple that with the environment that Naito's in, and you think about what type of character would that really match with, when I was looking through the various races of Pathfinder, which I think species is a better word to describe it realistically.
Yeah.
But when I think of what species that would fit with well, a Wayang, this angular character, short in stature, living somewhat in this shadows, much like Dexter has to hide his entire lab. There's a lot of synergy there that I thought would just really, really connect. And that is more or less how Umber Zila was born.
I had no idea he was Dexter inspired. That's pretty awesome.
I fuck with that. Yeah. That's pretty good.
You have a very interesting part of your backstory that you kind of throw in at the tail end that we don't go into too much detail with, but that is Tetros Harbor being a place where you can commit more sociological experiments. Give us some more information on what Boomer is trying to accomplish here in
And how
Tetros
you make a
Harbor.
villain with a heart of gold.
I wouldn't say it's a villain with the heart of gold per se.
I wouldn't call him a villain either.
But I would say he's also not heroic.
He seems more stable than you would expect.
To me, he reads like the good aligned party face between the two of us.
Yeah, okay. I could see that. Yeah, I could see that. Continuing with the character, in the way that I was constructing him, I was thinking of his backstory and what would his drive be? What would this literal little guy be upset with? When I layered it in the sense that here is a species that's not the ordinary, a species that is literally smaller than other folks, whose trade was laughed off at Spellstorm Island. What would be his drive going forward? He could go to this elven college, he can gain this knowledge, but what is the point of that? Why would he want to even do alchemy in the first place? What did chemists want to do chemistry for in the first place? And a lot of that is
To
altruism.
break bad.
Well, what is it that would drive Dr. Umber Zila to be in this specific place rather than in a lab tinkering away, working in the shadows? Well, he was kicked on, he was spat on, and it was something that left a bad taste in his mouth. And there was one of two ways to either go about resolving that. There was either A, you become a madman, you become that mad bomber, you become a caricature of what most comic book characters are when they get spat on, disregarded, and marginalized. Or B, and this is why I selected B, is it offers a lot more nuance to it. To seize opportunity, but in a way that doesn't just benefit him, it benefits everyone involved. But as part of his approach, there is an altruistic bent made through one character, one glamour he has, Bruce Wang, owner of the Wang Foundation and Wang Enterprises. So there's that part, and then there's also the more destructive point, which is where if you can speak softly and that's not getting through, you use a big stick, or in his case, a big boom. And so if there's a certain industry, if there's something that's marginalizing and keeping certain people from being able to have the same amount of equity that others are, how he would respond to that, if needed, is with violence, frankly.
I have one more question for both of you. The Boomer is well known as some sort of explosives man, and the Raspberry, you were also recognized for your skills. What are your characters' criminal history?
She was a contract killer for a little while. The way she's carved out the existence for herself is that she performs sex work publicly, which is her way of getting into the society without drawing attention to herself. She's fetishized, she's exoticized, believably, because of the lack of presence of her people in the area. And, for her, and at least in the way I conceive of this character, giving over her sexuality is not to gain power over her. Whether that's like too broad or too dismissive a characterization of like what it means to be confident in your body and your sexuality and in your agency. In that episode, she changes, she fully disrobes in front of.
I will say we've never run a game with as much spiciness. And I feel like with the bank guard at the end, you can kind of hear me being awkward. Like, I'm just like, well, yeah, I guess roll for persuasion or roll.
It was awkward for me too, but like, that was like
a lot of sauce.
But the point was never.
We've never role played like flirting or anything.
That's not true. We have role played flirting.
No, that's just you and me actually flirting.
The point in that sequence is that is not to obviously it's to tease at the thing, but the indulgence of the thing is not the focus. And that for me is what makes it okay.
Right. We weren't just like, hey, I have an NPC, you should try to seduce him and bone him. It was more of I'm gonna play this cat and mouse game kind of with him so I can.
This is an element of her using those which she views as lesser than herself.
Yeah. And I think other people will see that.
And an element of that, if she's dealing with those she thinks are either less developed or cultivated or as intelligent as she is, an element of that is I will simply use every tool you have not thought through against you. What was the question? What was the train of thought here?
Criminal history.
So the way she established herself is doing this sex work, and that has what has given her, a first tier of credibility, or at least a first tier of insulation from prejudice or discrimination,
as well as funds for her and her sister who are escaped from this coven.
There's never a dry season.
What is their sister doing? You said they live together here in Tetris Harbor, but what is 19? Is she also working in the brothel?
No. 19 is probably keeping as low as possible. 1 drow is enough. 2 drow is grounds for being arrested. And the plan for both of them is to like make enough money to be able to get out, but not have to go back to Lysira where the clan is. But given the territories north of the Southern Kingdom are not exactly inhabitable. So really, both of them are grasping at straws to figure out a way out truly. And what does a criminal seek more than escape?
Well, I question whether there is any crimes that the doctor has committed
But the boomer's name is well known.
for blowing up UIA ships, yes.
And if you're railing against the state apparatus, are you really committing crimes? That's the question here.
When I look at Dr. Umberzila, what crimes has he committed? I would say vandalism. I would say it's destruction of property. I would say it's theft. And it's grandiose, but it's grandiose in a way that is supposed to confer and convey a message. And so, depending on how you look at the message, I'd say the messaging is the most egregious crime he might have committed, because for some, for the downtrodden, it could be a sign of hope. It could be a symbolic. For those in power, his crime is terrorism. But his crimes, or his acts that some people would interpret to be crimes, it is blowing up things. He's very good at making things go boom. Primarily, the way he's done that is he'll find a ship, he'll go onto it at night, and he'll blow it down from the hull so it sinks to the bottom.
I think of a pirate crew that could have used that at some point.
How about that? So my last question is actually for Brick, and it's something I've been wondering about. You play a sex worker.
Yeah.
It's a very
Polarizing.
It's a very polarizing role
Yeah.
to play. As someone who has never been a sex worker,
Yeah.
at least to our knowledge,
Yeah, at least to your knowledge.
how do you accord it a certain amount of respect and dignity and avoid letting it fall into a caricature? Like, what is the mindset in trying to be a mouthpiece for and portray this with respect and dignity?
I think that's a good question. I don't know that I have like a terribly in-depth answer outside of like, one, it's something I've never played before, but two, because like, given the state of the play space as is, and given like what we are speaking to as the differing influences and presences of what are making up this post-failed state society, it would be naive to purport that it does not exist, but it would be egregious to only execute it in terms of its tropes. I don't know that I'm like trying to soapbox anything with it by doing it, but if there is something like I would like to accomplish with it, it's maybe either demystification or destigmatization. Narratively, it is not groundbreaking by any fucking terms. It is simply something new for me to play as a player and as a performer, as a writer. But also, I don't want to hold it up as like, oh, look at me, I'm doing the sex positive thing. But it is about like doing the sex positive thing. In a fantasy setting, I don't think it is beyond the realm of believability to say that the person you are paying to have sex with at night sometimes to supplement herself is going out to do assassinations in the seedy criminal part of the crime town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she is doing assassination.
Yeah, she's a contract killer. What about you, Blue Jay? Tell us a little bit about your thinking in like putting together what is our maiden voyage on this thing we're all doing together.
So Tetris Harbor, the capital of Rhaenasia, is something we have danced around. We've played Adventures in Ceres. We mostly play in other countries, Korcha.
That's really about it.
That's it. Yeah. I was going to say, a lot of Korcha.
We don't play a lot of Lysira games.
A little bit of Ceres.
Propsius.
Dropsius, yeah.
But pre-Qwest Coast, PQC, I ran an adventure called Timberwood.
Yeah.
Timberwood was a logging town. It's a one-off adventure that was kind of putting out feelers for a campaign. And the campaign was always going to take us here to Tetris Harbor. So I was already working on material for that.
Yeah.
We kind of pivoted and changed directions, and we didn't do the campaign. Players kind of changed in and out. We started with a whole nother group at some point. So the setting was already in my head kind of being made. And then I was actually supposed to DM last for this podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys remember that.
That's true. I was supposed to go first.
And so I already had both of your prompts for character making. So I knew what the themes were, and we were all kind of going for a crime theme. I was like, oh, like I've got this urban environment. I want to do a bank heist.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I came up with the setting. And in terms of DMing, this is probably the least amount of planning I've done. Timberwood was hyper noted. I had every NPC listed out. I had their likes, dislikes, triggers, passions, trysts, whatever.
Pronouns?
Of course. And species. I like being that prepared, but at the same time, my players really forced me to be flexible in that story. I wish that one was recorded because there were some really good times. And 19 was actually introduced at the end of that one.
That's true. Can I ask you a question on the topic of you being prepared?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your approach to DMing and what you think makes or breaks a good showrunner for a game like this?
I mean, I feel like I'm still learning. So giving you what I think a good showrunner for something like this is, or DM for this, is hard for me to answer as I'm still trying to develop the skills myself.
Yeah.
I usually take extensive notes and I try to get as much information on the setting as possible. So that way it's just more cohesive. So if my players ask me a question, I know the setting and I can translate it better to them. If they want more information, I have it. I don't try to spew it all out to them all at once, although I am guilty of that. I just like having it. So if they have a question or if they do an action, there's an appropriate response. Like if they want to break into this store, does this family live at the store? Do they live in like a living quarters above, like Bob's Burgers? Or like, oh, how heavy is the guard presence in this part of town? How the world is going to respond to my players' actions in a realistic and cohesive way, not so that way they think it's like, hey, like, you know, like you can't just have the owner like show up when it was a 1-story house before and like now he's coming down from upstairs. What? Yeah. I think to finish Rick's question about this setting, what I've done different is I had a concept. I had 2 NPCs, one of which only appears in this episode. Everything else was made on the spot at the table, which was new for me, but it was also sort of enriching. Like Ted the miner was made up, Henry the tavern owner, and Heinrich the thieves guild. I didn't expect you guys to go to the thieves guild. I didn't expect you guys to go to another bar to find a miner. All of that was on the spot. And normally I run adventures in small towns, so I can have a full list of NPCs and I know exactly who's going to be where. I wanted to do a capital city, something I hadn't done before. So I think like me planning for any NPC you could meet in any part of town would have been a big ask. So I went into this one with real skim notes. The fixer was the only fixed NPC that appears in this episode. And then there's one that you guys haven't met yet. But that was it. And I think it turned out great. And it really, I think, allowed you guys to drive the story. And it really allowed me to be like, well, I don't know what you're going to do. You're going to rob a bank. How are you going to do it? I have no idea. So let's see what they come up with.
It's good open-ended stakes. The core at how I think about this game is that the best version of this game, no matter who you're playing with, no matter how you're playing, is collaboration.
Yeah. And that includes all of you listening. You guys are now our collaborators. And
you guys are Qwest Coasters now.
Yeah, our co-conspirators, and you will go to jail with us if we go down for this. So
for the Qwest Coast being too good, too edgy, too real.
Well, that's it. That was whatever this is. Hey. A little different from our main show.
Well, this is the first one. We're finding our footing.
That's true.
We were back. We talked back.
Coast bait?
Coast bait?
It's the first, whatever this is going to be titled
this
later.
to be determined segment of the Qwest Coast.
Call this a walk down the coast?
Oh, we could call it TBD. Talk back. Damn it.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed Let's Do It in the Bank. I can't wait to see what Raspberry and Boomer do next in episode 2 here on
Qwest Coast!
Oh, yeah, the Qwest Coast.
That's the one. All right. Thanks, guys.
Fuck yeah.